Christ. Hi, I'm Brian. Like Matt, I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I'll never forget my first time. None of us ever forget our first time.
Nobody ever does. You decided that you wanted to undertake a rather monumental task.
Basically, from 1954 to, well, I guess 2014 with the new one. There's a ton of Godzilla movies. Some really good, some just horrible. And I've never actually sat down and watched all of them, but I want to see all of them, start to finish. I want to review them with a fellow cinephile and Godzilla lover, and just kind of exchange thoughts on what we feel about each one of them. Maybe culminating in the new one opening up in 2014.
It might take us until then.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty big project.
We sat down and we watched the very first Godzilla movie ever. Godzilla 1954, better known as Gojira. Now, something that we decided when we sat down to do this was that we were going to do our best to watch all of these movies with the Japanese language tracks.
Yeah, I feel like the dubbing kind of takes away some of it, you know?
Yeah, and in some cases, the movie is completely different, especially with these first two movies that we're covering. And the other thing that with these reviews, that we're not going to sit here and give you 30-minute freaking summaries of these flicks. Consider this a companion piece to if you had just watched the movie for the very first time, and now you're going to go talk to Brian and Matt about, hey, what did you think of Godzilla 1954? We are going to deliver a log line for every movie, a one-sentence summary to kind of give you a general idea of what we're talking about.
Oh, I can say that too?
You can.
Let me pitch it to you. A giant monster lays waste to Japan as one scientist grapples with his darkest secret that may be the key to stopping it or destroying all of mankind. Pretty serious stuff there. And speaking of serious, that's kind of the tone of this movie, isn't it?
It's completely...
It's not like a fun kiddie flick like the other ones might be.
So much has been said about the original Godzilla, and one of the things that when we watched this, we were trying to figure, well, what can we really say that hasn't already been said? I think more so than any other Godzilla movie, this is the one movie that everybody agrees that, oh, this one's the best Godzilla movie, period. You have people out there, you know, like the film student varieties that are like, oh, well, you know, I only like the original Godzilla, all the other ones just suck, but the original, oh, it's amazing. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Personally, I loved it. I thought it was a genuinely good flick. I'd watch it again. I actually own it, thanks to Matt. And you don't really feel like you're just watching a guy in a costume stomping on models. You feel like you're watching like just this epic destruction of a city. You also get to see the effects, like before and after Godzilla shows up and makes his raid. You know, before everyone's trying to figure out what is this thing, you know, where did it come from? They're kind of treating it as like a real animal. And then afterwards, you sense the frustration of, well, how do we destroy this thing now? Because obviously our military is not going to stop it. It gave a realistic sense to it, as real as it could be anyway.
It's probably the only Godzilla movie that has, in my opinion, a real human central core. You actually give a shit about these characters. They're actually semi-interesting as compared to others in sequels. But it was just such a beautiful... combination of so many different things. You know, your cinematography, the black and white added so much to this. If that had been shot in color, I think you would have lost just, you know, all these different layers. There's a real sense of horror.
Agreed, yeah.
There. Godzilla looks so fucking ominous when it's, you know, it's in, you know, nighttime and you're looking up at this thing. He's barely lit. Best city destruction scene, probably. Yeah. Basically, there is only one city destruction scene in this movie.
That's true, I never realized that.
But it is such an epic scale. And you see so many different angles from people, you know, the military or just fleeing civilians from this. It gets dark, it gets heart-wrenching. I mean, I will never forget that scene with the woman.
The mom and the two kids.
Clutching her kid, both two kids, and saying, it's going to be all right. We're going to be with Daddy soon. I mean, holy shit, this is 1954. You know, and just a couple movies later, you know, Godzilla was, you know, doing the little dance thing in Monster Zero.
Michael Jacksoning it. I mean, just a total 180 right there.
It really is. And that also brings me to the point that I think that you can only really make one Godzilla 1954.
Right.
Because they tried to do that again in Godzilla 1984, you know, but it never reached that that point.
No, they were trying to reinvent the wheel there, I feel like. Another thing about this movie is you're not just waiting for Godzilla to show up, you're actually caring about what these people are doing, like Dr. Sarazawa.
That was probably the best cast out of any Godzilla movie, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think they casted because they wanted talent and not just, we need people to fill up this scene.
There was actually quality behind this project. They were given time to construct something really rather epic. You know, there's the special effects. We haven't really even talked about that.
Yeah, it's true.
For 1954, in my honest opinion, there are some effects in there that are better than some of the effects that came later in the series.
Agreed.
Even in the 1970s, really. And a lot of these are optical effects that really you could only kind of achieve in black and white, but they look really damn good.
Yeah, they really add to the movie too.
Like when Godzilla first appears over the mountaintop and he's roaring down. The merger of everything in this movie was just, it was good.
Good call on the music. I love that theme song, and I feel like it's, I don't know, for some reason I feel like later on in the series they kind of present it in a more like goofy tone.
They do.
But even though it's the same theme, but when the opening credits start rolling in this and you hear that music and then you hear his roar, it just kind of sets the tone for the movie, I think. I think what also helps, speaking of music, is when he's going on his nightly raid there in the city of Tokyo, there is no music at all. Not that I can recall anyway.
No, because I think we mentioned that because I think it stops the minute that he hits the
and it just kind of just adds to the power of that. Like I can't imagine in 1954 seeing this for the first time and just sitting there in the movie theater and thinking, holy crap, like what is going on?
The sense of, if you were to compare a Godzilla movie to Citizen Kane, this is the only movie in the series that I think you could legitimately do that to without being scoffed and heckled at.
Right, people would actually take this one seriously.
Which, obviously it's a very heavy movie, but I also think that in a lot of ways, especially just from the construction standpoint of the story, which by the way I wanted to mention, delivers just a great sense of suspense.
Yeah, it does.
You don't see the monster and it just builds up and it builds up. You see traces of it, then all of a sudden it appears. You don't know if you can destroy it. I mean, this is the first time Godzilla appears, so they think, oh yeah, electrical lines are going to take him down. Oh yeah, pistols are going to.
Right, the tanks will do it.
Yeah. Doesn't fucking happen.
Right.
He just levels them and it's a nightmare scenario.
In fact, I think that's what they kind of they assumed they somehow found out that he was going to be coming to land. So they set up a row of tanks and they set up all the electrical lines thinking, well, if the tanks don't work, we'll definitely get him with this electricity, right? I think.
Yeah.
And he just steps right over those like you're stepping on a spider or something.
Yeah.
It just lays complete waste to him, and then you kind of get that hopeless sense, right? Automatically.
This movie, blessing and a curse to all Godzilla movies, because every movie that has since appeared has been compared to this one, and just oh, well, why can't it be more like the original? Again, I want to reiterate, and this is my opinion, there can only be one Godzilla 1954. Lightning got caught in the bottle right then.
Yeah, perfect way to describe it.
When it became goofier later down the line, it needed to become goofy, because trying to make a serious sequel to this movie,
you can do it 1 or 2 times. You can't do it 20 times though.
No.
People would kill themselves,
Yeah, which we almost did
right
in the sequel.
In number 2.
We'll get to that
We survived, as you can see. It kind of brings up a point where, later on when it kind of gets a little sillier, we're not going to look at it like, okay, it's automatic crap because it's not as serious as the first one. We're going to look at a movie like Godzilla vs. Megalon for what it is, just some stupid fun, and we're going to try to look at it that way. We're not going to compare it to the 54 version and say, well, it doesn't have this serious gritty tone, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think we know enough to differentiate when a movie's trying to be campy and when it's trying to be serious.
In tokusatsu in general, you just have all these different levels.
Right.
You know what I mean? And most of the time, there is no movie that can hit G54. You know what I mean? There's this glass ceiling. And a lot of times, it's a lot simpler and stuff like that because obviously it's catered to children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is exactly what happened in the 60s and the 70s and even the 90s to an extent. And again, nothing quite else like this movie. Highly recommended.
Absolutely.
Without, I mean, and we're talking about the Japanese version now. Now, I actually do like the American version. We don't have to launch into that.
Yeah, honestly, I almost prefer the Japanese version, but there's nothing wrong with, was it Godzilla, King of the Monsters? What year did that come out here?
56.
Alright, so a little bit later. Nothing wrong with that. That's a great flick too, right?
Yeah. This film is available on multiple formats, actually. Criterion just released well, I say just released, it was like late 2011, early 2012. They released a DVD and Blu-ray set. And beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The print, pristine, the commentary, amazing. Best Godzilla commentary I have heard personally. It's by a gentleman named David Collette, who wrote a critical history of Toho sci-fi films or something like that. If you guys want to learn more about Godzilla 1954, the genesis of Godzilla, I mean, again, these are points and things that we have not touched upon because everybody else has been freaking talking about it since 1956 or whenever Godzilla hit shores here. Happy Dragon Pictures did an amazing job basically reviewing the Criterion disc, but also it's like he has like maybe an hour's worth of documentary stuff, basically chronicling how this movie came to be and the special effects and all this stuff too. Godzilla 1954. How many stars do you give it out of 5?
Out of 5, I'd say 4.
4?
To me, 5 is like that's the best movie ever, and it's not the best movie ever to me.
How about this? On a scale of the rest of the Godzilla films.
Ooh, number 1.
Number 1?
Yep.
Number 1. It's in the top 3 for me. You will see us back here for the sequel, which was only released 6 months later after Godzilla 1954.
That can't bode well.
Well, they're about to find out. Yeah. So, we will see you next time when we cover Godzilla Raids Again.